Hi everyone, my name is Bailey. It is very cold and snowy right now, and so I'm going to warm myself up by talking about these movies, which get me very heated. So I painstakingly sat through the three movies in the After series, which the first one is called After, the second one is called After We Fell, the third one is called After We Collided, and at the end of the third movie, I unfortunately found out that there's going to be a fourth called After Ever Happy, something like that. I don't know. So, in this video, I'm going to be breaking down these movies, telling you what happened. So, if you haven't seen them, don't worry. Please don't go off and watch them.
Don't do it. Don't.
Because believe me, they are not worth it. I will be talking to you about the plot, all of the plot holes, and just why this movie and this series in general sucks. Okay? So, just for some background on the After series, it was actually started as a fanfic published by a woman named Anna Todd on Wattpad in 2013. I know, right? I actually remember reading these on Wattpad originally, and it was a One Direction fan fiction. And the main character of these stories in the original post on Wattpad was Harry Styles. And so when I read these books on Wattpad, I was reading it as if he was Harry Styles, and there's all the other members of One Direction in there as well. So that's kind of wild. Obviously, they had to change their names when they actually published the books and then made the movies. The female main character is named Tessa Young. She is an 18-year-old college freshman. She's away from her family for the first time. She's very naive and inexperienced, is kind of the way that she's portrayed, as if she grew up like in this little bubble. She doesn't know anything about the real world. Then there's Hardin Scott, who is our resident bad boy of these series. He wears a lot of black and a lot of leather, and he's in general incredibly moody, manipulative, controlling, has a huge temper, is at times violent, aggressive, impulsive. Need I go on? So honestly, I'm not kidding. These movies make 50 Shades of Grey look amazing, okay? So the first movie, After, was released in 2019. It currently has an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. And we start out with our main character, Tessa. She is packing up and getting ready to go to college. Her mom, who is played by Selma Blair. Tessa's boyfriend, for seemingly a while, is played by Dylan Arnold, who played Theo in You. They did him so dirty with this hair that they gave him in this movie. It's like insane. So they are driving to drop Tessa off at college, and they are in Atlanta, okay? When the screen pans back to them driving in their car, it's the skyline of Atlanta. After they drop Tessa off and the mom and boyfriend drive away, the license plate says Georgia. And then when Tessa's on her way to her first class, there's a sign in the background of the shot that says University of Atlanta. All of these things obviously lead me to believe that she goes to school in Atlanta and that she lives in Georgia, okay? This will become important later, but just keep that in the back of your mind, okay? So they're dropping her off in her dorm. There's these two edgy girls sitting on the bed. They have like ripped tights, and I think one has streaks of color in her hair. And Tessa's mom gives them like dirty looks. She's very clearly not impressed. And the one roommate, so these two girls, they're dating, they're girlfriends, and there's a blonde girl whose name, honestly, I don't know. It's honestly not important. I don't remember it. And then the girl who is actually Tessa's roommate, her name is Steph. And she makes a comment like, I was really bummed to be paired with a freshman. And it's never explicitly said in the movies, but later we come to find out that Hardin and Steph is Hardin's friend. Hardin is a senior, so you kind of assume that Steph is also a senior. I don't know, like, how all other colleges work, but for a senior to be in the same dorm as a freshman seems super strange to me. But whatever. That night, she gets a text from Noah that literally is like my mom texting me. It said night night with a smiley face emoji. The next day, she goes to her first class and she's wearing these outfits that it's confusing to me, and I'll explain as we get further into the movie. But basically, like I said, she's supposed to be this kind of sheltered, kind of like conservative girl. As the movies go on, she starts to dress where the other characters in the movie are like, oh my gosh, you look so good. Wow, look at you. You look so hot, whatever. But like, she's still not very fashionable. So like, I don't know if we're supposed to like, if they're supposed to not be that great of outfits on purpose because she's not supposed to be like the most stylish person, or if they just had costume designers on set that didn't like her. Like, I really don't know, but I'll show you pictures later. But there's outfits that she's wearing where other characters are like, and she does not look good. Anyways, she's early to class because she's so nerdy and she's so whatever that she's literally there before they've unlocked the door to the classroom, which, like, dude, chill. And she meets this guy outside and his name's Landon, and so they meet and whatever. She says that she's an econ major. Okay. Honestly, that scene was only important for introducing the character of Landon. Later, she's taking a shower and she's barefoot in the shower, and it's a communal shower in her dorm. So I was so disgusted by that. Disgusting! So then she gets out of the shower and she finds out that her clothes have fallen off the hook that they were hanging on and they're on the ground soaking wet. So of course she has to walk back to her room only in a towel with just soaking wet clothes. Okay. When she walks in, she sees this boy on Steph's bed, and he's in a leather jacket and he has tattoos, and he's reading he's reading The Great Gatsby, and she notices that, and I think she's like, wow, he is not like the other boys. But in my mind, I'm like, The Great Gatsby? Like, isn't every high schooler required to read that? Like, it's supposed to prove that he's like an intellectual because he's reading books, but it's the fucking Great Gatsby. Like, come on. So anyways, they have a weird interaction where she asks him to turn around, or she asks him to leave the room while she gets dressed, and he basically refuses. Not respecting her boundaries is a major theme for Hardin's character that we'll definitely see more as the movie goes on. But it's always just like concerning and gross. Like, this is literally a stranger who's asking you to leave her own room while she gets dressed, and you're gonna put up a fight about it. Like, that's so weird. Then later the next day, she's studying in the library. Steph comes into the library to find her, to invite her to a party, which I'm like, okay, I guess they're friends now. So she goes to the party and she meets some of Steph's friends. Hardin is in this friend group, so Hardin's there. Hardin is with this girl named Molly.
That's my best friend. She a real bad bitch.
Who it's kind of implied that they're together, or at least hooking up. Oh, and by the way, this party is at a frat house that Hardin belongs to. But he is so not like the frat boy type. I find it so odd that they had him be in like, it serves no purpose to the story. They're all sitting down, like talking or whatever, and they start peer pressuring Tessa to drink. And the way that they do it is so like what adults think that like teenagers or college students would sound like. Like, come on, just have one drink. It's like, no one at any party that I like would have ever gone to in college, if I was like, no, I'm cool, I'm not gonna drink, people would have been like, okay, like whatever. But of course they peer pressure her to drink, so she chugs like vodka straight from a bottle or something, which is like gross. One of the characters in this friend group, his name is Zed. Can you guess which One Direction member he was in the original books? Of course he was Zayn. And he's honestly not important to the story, but I spent a ridiculous amount of time every time he was on screen. I was like, who is this actor? Who is this actor? But I could not figure this one out, and I was so mad that I had to look it up. I'm going to put a picture of him here, and I'll give you 3 seconds to guess who it is. It's Joe from Glee. Should have freaking known.
Joseph.
Oh, what's with the tats? Bible quotes. And each one of my dreads is named after a book of the Bible.
You've got to be kidding me.
The nose ring and everything, I was pissed that I didn't get that. But, oh, and they're playing Truth or Dare, and it comes out that she's a virgin, of course. She starts texting Noah. I don't know why. I don't know. But basically mentions that she's at a party and she had a drink. Or maybe she calls him, actually. And he starts, like, freaking out at her. He's like, how could you do this? You're not like this. I'm so disappointed in you, blah, blah, blah. And it shows him, like, texting her into the night. Like, he sends her a text at, like, 2 a.m. So he sucks, too. So then, of course, while she's drunk, she stumbles into a room that has all of these annotated books in it, like Wuthering Heights, and of course, whose room is it? Hardin's. They have a moment where they almost kiss, and then she's like, I can't do this, and she leaves. We find out that Hardin's dad is the chancellor of the university. There's this really weird scene at a cafe where Tessa's getting a cup of coffee, and Hardin's there and asks if she wants to come on a drive with him, or he says, I have something I want to show you, something like that. And she says, no, we shouldn't be friends. We need to keep our distance from each other. Then literally 5 seconds later, she's like, okay, and then gets in his car. Then they go to this lake, which is supposed to be like, oh, Hardin's like special spot or whatever. And it's supposed to be like a romantic moment between them, but the way that they're treading water with like their chins basically in the water, and it looks so unnatural and weird, and I don't know why they couldn't have just like shot it to where like they were actually able to stand up, or at least like have the water at their chest or something. I don't know. I was just like laughing about that the whole time, because it's supposed to be like this is an intimate, like serious moment between them, and they literally just like they look like this the whole time. Okay, so they swim in this honestly gross lake water. So of course he takes off his clothes when they get there and jumps in and starts swimming, and she's like, I don't have a bathing suit, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you can wear my shirt. So she starts to take off her clothes and she asks him for privacy. So he turns around, but then like he sneaks like a peek over his shoulder. And again, it's like, dude, like that's so creepy. She's asking you for privacy. Like it's just, that's so odd. Like, I don't know if that's supposed to be like endearing, like, oh, he just can't help himself but look. I don't know. To me, it just came off as very just gross. Like, ew. He asks her why she's with Noah, and she says, because he's nice to me. Is he nice to you? Like, that really hasn't been established. They have their first kiss while they're swimming like sea creatures in the lake. And again, it's odd because they've had like barely any interaction up to this point. And I don't really think that these two actors have much chemistry, like, at all. But I don't know. It's supposed to be like, oh, look at us, we're kissing, whatever. Who cares? So then after the lake, they go eat burgers at this restaurant, which I think is supposed to be like, I don't know, look, they're like cute and normal, because the things that they've been doing up until now have not been cute or normal. When they're at the restaurant, Zed and Molly, that girl who it's kind of implied that her and Hardin have been hooking up, they show up at the restaurant, and Hardin gets super weird and literally basically asks Tessa to leave. And she goes and stands over by the bar, which is like 3 feet away from the booth that they've been sitting in. And it's very awkward. And then Hardin comes over and, you know, Tessa's all like, what was that about? And he's like, I don't date, and gives this whole thing about how like they shouldn't do this and yada, yada, yada. So then Tessa's all sad. She puts on makeup in this like edgy outfit, and then she literally immediately takes it off. So like, what was the point of that? I don't know. Then when she's coming out of class, Noah, her boyfriend, is there with flowers to surprise her. And she's like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. Forgot I had a boyfriend. They go to this bonfire party, and both Tessa and Noah are shown with solo cups, which, like, it's not explicitly said that it's alcohol, but like, they're at a college party and they're holding solo cups. And Noah had literally given her so much shit like 2 days earlier about drinking and going to a party. So I was just like, what? Like, now he's fine with it? I don't know. That makes no sense. Molly suggests that they play Suck and Blow. If you've seen Clueless, you'll know. This dude, who is, again, just a peripheral character, he really doesn't matter. He is passing it to Tessa, and he drops it, which looks like it's on purpose, and then leaves in to kiss her, and Tessa's like, no. And then Hardin is sitting across the bonfire watching all of this, and then he attacks this dude, like punches him in the face, and then just storms off. Noah and Tessa go back to Tessa's dorm, and Tessa gets a call from Landon, who, oh, I guess I should have mentioned this. So Landon's mom is dating Hardin's dad. Landon calls Tessa and is like, you need to come here. So Tessa goes to their house, which is the chancellor's house. It's kind of like uncertain if, you know, like we said, we saw Hardin's room in the frat house, so it's implied that that's where he lives. But then he also has this room at his dad's house, the chancellor's house, and it's unclear where Landon lives, if he lives there too. I don't know, but it's this giant house, and Tessa goes there, and literally, like, it's her first time there, and she just walks in the front door and walks into the kitchen where Landon is, which I was like, what the you don't even knock? Like, okay. Hardin's out by the pool, and he's all moody, and there's like broken glass everywhere because he threw stuff and broke stuff because he was so mad. Like, I don't know. So then Tessa goes out there and is like trying to talk to him and whatever. They go up to Hardin's room at this house and they hook up. Then she wakes up and she's like, oh shoot, like, my boyfriend. And she goes back to her dorm, and there's this really weird scene where Noah's sitting outside at the steps of her dorm as she like walks up to him, and he's like, where have you been? And she's like, a friend needed me. And then they like turn the camera, and Hardin is like 3 feet behind her. So then Noah gets mad, obviously, and Tessa's like, I can explain, no please, which it's like, no, actually, like, you can't really explain. You just straight up cheated on your boyfriend, but okay. Not that I think that her and Noah should have been together, but it's like, at least break up with him first before you're going to get with someone else. So he drives away in a different car than the one that he just used to drop her off at college, like basically 3 days earlier or whatever. which I just, again, thought was so weird. Like, what's the point of that? Now she's all sad about him breaking up with her, and there's like a whole montage where she's sad about it, and Steph, her roommate, gives her this hug, and she crawls into her bed, and she has her shoes on, which is gross, and she says to Steph, "I lost my best friend," which it's like, not only did we never really see them being like best friends or having this great relationship, but like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, you literally cheated on him while he was there, like, with you. It's hard to feel bad for her because it's like, these are just the consequences of your own choices. There's a scene where her and Hardin make up and they sneak into the library so that he can fucking read to her, I don't know, Jane Austen or something. It's just so, like, trying hard to be deep and romantic, but it's so not. And there's this dumb scene where the security guard, like, chases them through the library, but he's literally running, like, 0.2 miles an hour, and so are they. And it's, like, slow motion of them, like, laughing and holding hands while this, like, music plays. And it's just so stupid. I hate it so much. They're back in Tessa's room and they're making out, and Tessa's mom just walks in, which previously, when Tessa had gotten back to her dorm and Hardin was on her bed, she said, "How did you get in?" And Hardin held up a set of keys and said, "Steph gave me keys." So this implies that you need keys to get in that specific room. Her mom has no keys, but she just walks right in. So how does that happen? We don't know. Okay, I changed that back because it was freaking me out. Her mom starts freaking out at her, yelling at her, asking if this boy is why she's been skipping class, which, has she been skipping class? We don't know. And then her mom says she's cut off if she's going to continue to be with him. We are never told what cut off means, like financially, or genuinely we don't know what that means, but it's a very dramatic scene. Hardin says he wants to show Tessa something, so he takes her to this apartment that is a professor's apartment who is gone in Italy for the year, and I guess she was asking him to water her plants. So then Hardin says they should move in together. He says when he found out that Tessa was cut off, he knew he had to do something. Which again made me question, like, does this mean that her mom isn't paying for her tuition or her room and board anymore? And if that's the case, does that mean that she immediately has to move out of her dorm that day? Like, don't you pay per semester for dorms? Or, I mean, you certainly pay more than daily for them. So why she has to find an immediate fix to this solution, we don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Of course, she's all like, "Oh my God, you did this for me," even though 2 seconds before he said, "I'm already watering this person's plants at this already empty apartment anyway," so he didn't really do anything for her, but okay. So now, of course, there's another fucking montage in this apartment, and they're taking a bath together and, I don't know, eating takeout, and it's literally so stupid. Hardin's dad and Landon's mom, they get married, okay? And they go to the wedding reception, which is held at their giant house. And Tessa is wearing this. Yep. That is a high-low dress. And yes, this movie did come out in 2019. So, I have so many questions that will never get answered. So Landon's mom's name is Karen. Hardin's dad's name is Ken. We learn about his tragic backstory where he was an alcoholic and he owed these people money. This is back when they lived in London, Hardin and his mom and his dad. And basically, these men came looking for his dad in the middle of the night and broke into their home, and his dad wasn't there. And trigger warning, his mom was attacked while Hardin watched. Ever since then, Hardin has had these really bad nightmares, and he's harbored a lot of resentment towards his dad. I think at one point it said that he just came to college here because he didn't have to pay tuition since his dad is the chancellor. So after the wedding reception, they go back to the apartment and they have SEGGS. One thing that I will say, and I mean this sincerely, as something that's very positive, is that they always show them using protection. And too many movies and shows do not do that. So then while they're at the apartment, Hardin is, I don't know, in the other room or something, and his phone keeps blowing up. And so she looks at it, and Molly is texting and saying, "Have you told her yet? I miss you. Can't wait to see you." With like all these heart emojis and stuff. So then she finds him at the restaurant with all of these friends. So like Molly, Steph, Zed, some other people. Again, they're pretty irrelevant. But basically, Molly's acting like really weird, and Tessa says that she's moved in with Hardin, and they're like, "What? Really? Like, haven't you guys known each other like 3 weeks?" But okay. And so then basically Molly shows Tessa a video while all of them just sit there watching, including Hardin, of that night at that party when they were playing a Truth or Dare, and Tessa ended up storming out of the game because she didn't want to play anymore. Hardin stayed and basically dared himself to make her fall in love with him and then break her heart, basically. So, of course, Tessa's super pissed, and Hardin's like, "Oh, but then I really fell in love with you for real," and yada, 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 and Tessa's still super mad. She doesn't care, and she doesn't trust him, so she gets on a bus back home, and she basically goes on, like, a mini apology tour. She talks to her mom, they make up, she goes and talks to Noah. I guess it's just supposed to be wrapping that up. And now it's the end of the semester. So her first semester of college, okay, all of this has taken place just within one semester, which is 4 months, okay? And this class that her and Hardin had together, the professor gives Tessa his final project and says, "I think this was really meant for you to read." So it's basically this paper that he's like, "Oh, like, she changed my world." It's like, whatever. So then at the end of the movie, Tessa goes back to the dock at that lake where they were earlier when they looked like sea creatures. And he sits down next to her. And that is literally the end of the movie. So, as painful as that was for me to describe that to you, it was 3 times as painful to watch, believe me. Okay, so the second movie in this series is called After We Collided. It came out in 2020, and it has a whopping 13% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, yeah.
This movie opens 1 month later after the end of the last movie, okay? So, it's Christmas time. That timeline, again, doesn't really make sense because, I mean, I know every school is different, but it's specifically before Christmas time. I think it ends up being about a week before Christmas. And if it's a week before Christmas, 1 month before that would be the end of November. So their semester at their school went from September to November. Like, Hardin's sleeping in his car. We really never get an answer as to why. I think it's just supposed to show that he's not well because he and Tessa are not together. And he feels really bad about this dare that he made himself. So, okay. And he is asleep in his car. He wakes up. He looks at all of these texts on his phone that he sent to Tessa, and they specifically say unread. Then we see Tessa, and she's looking longingly at his Instagram, on which he's verified. So she has an internship at this publishing company called Vance Publishing Company, and one of her co-workers is none other than Dylan Sprouse, who plays a character named Trevor. And another one of her co-workers, or maybe her boss, we're not really 100% sure, is this woman named, oh my god, what is her name? Kimberly. Her character's name is Kimberly. Okay. So, Kimberly, Trevor, co-workers. Okay. For her internship, she has to read 5 manuscripts a week. After literally her first day there, Christian Vance, the boss, invites her to go to a digital publishing conference in Seattle. She's 18. This is an internship, and she's been there 1 day. And she's now invited to go to this conference, which they have to stay at a hotel overnight. She doesn't have anything to wear because she was not told about this conference until the day of, because she's only worked there a day. So literally they buy her like clothes while she's there. Then they go out to this club that night because there's an investor who they're trying to make a deal with, who I guess likes to drink and likes to go to this club because Vance wants to open another office in Seattle or move his office to Seattle. I don't really know. Basically, he's looking for an investment from this person. So when they're about to go to this club, there's a moment where Tessa is walking down the steps and Dylan Sprouse is like, wow, because she's supposed to like look good. But again, her dress, it's just like, so while they're at this club, the guy who they want this investment from basically makes Trevor and Tessa chug this huge like fishbowl of a drink. She ends up drunk calling Hardin, and he asks where she is, and she says something like, wouldn't you like to know, or something. And then he's like, well, I have your location so I can always just track you. Okay. Then her and Trevor go back to one of their hotel rooms, I think hers, and they're just chatting, and she of course spills wine on him. So he takes off his clothes and she's rinsing them in the sink, and then all of a sudden Hardin's banging on the door. Now are you thinking, how did he get from Atlanta to Seattle so quickly? And that is a very good question. And my answer for you is that all of a sudden, they've changed the location of these movies. Yes, they have. Yes, they have. They have changed the entire location on us. When I tell you, this drives me absolutely insane. So apparently, the books are supposed to take place in the state of Washington. They are supposed to go to Washington State University. They filmed the first movie in Atlanta, like I showed you with my proof, okay? Why would they all of a sudden change in between two movies, change the location of the schools? I understand that sometimes oftentimes movies film in sets or locations that they have to make look like somewhere else. Why didn't they do that in Atlanta if they had to film in Atlanta? Like, why did they? Oh my God. I'm overheating thinking about this. I had to deal with that information. You have to deal with it too. Now they're in the state of Washington. So wherever their college is like a couple hours from Seattle, I guess. So anyways, Hardin is banging on the hotel door. Don't ask me how he knew which room was hers. She answers the door and she's like hello, whatever. And he notices that someone else is in there, and he literally kicks in the bathroom door to see Dylan Sprouse standing there holding his clothes. So he's like only in his underwear. And we get this beautiful moment.
Yeah, come on in, why don't you? Hey.
Hey, hon, good to see you. How you been? Fucking Trevor!
So then Trevor leaves. And then, of course, what do Tessa and Hardin do? Well, they hook up. Trevor gives her this report, basically, because she said she didn't have a car and she was having to Uber. And she said that even though it was a paid internship, with the cost of her having to Uber every single day, she was like barely breaking even. So, okay. And he prints out like this report for her where basically it shows like a cost analysis breakdown of Ubering every day versus buying a used car. And he even found a car for her, which he specifies is a red Toyota Corolla. Okay. And honestly, to me, this is nicer than anything that Hardin has done for her at this point. A few scenes later, they show her driving the car. It is a Toyota Corolla, but it's white. Why? For what? Why did they have to have Trevor specifically say that it was a red car? Like, someone had to make choices about what their lines were and what kind of car she was going to drive. Okay. Focus. So Tessa goes back to the apartment that we're unclear about if she had been living there or if Hardin had been living there. It's kind of implied that she was staying there and he wasn't. He was maybe sleeping in his car. Like, we really don't know. So she's gathering up some of her stuff, and then all of a sudden Hardin and his mom walk in, and his mom's visiting from London, and she doesn't know that they're not together anymore. So she's like, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you. Tessa's like, okay, fine, I'll pretend that we're still together, which, great plan. At some point, Noah calls Tessa, or Tessa calls Noah, I don't really know, and basically tells her that her dad, who she hasn't seen in years, presumably, has been trying to find her. And so she calls her mom, and she's mad at her mom because her mom didn't tell her, because Noah knew and not her. Then her mom freaks out at her. And of course, now that this happens, she's deciding to get back with Hardin. So it's Tessa's birthday, and he's like, oh, you can have like the most perfect day, so we can do anything that you want to do. So the first thing that she wants to do is go ice skating, and he goes ice skating in a leather jacket.
What? Child. Anyway, so
Then they do hot yoga together. At one point, Hardin's mom makes a comment to Tessa about Hardin's nightmares because he has another one while they're at the apartment together. And she says that therapists haven't helped the nightmares, but Tessa has. At one point, one of the characters makes a comment that Christmas is next week, meaning that throughout this entire series so far, it's taken place over the course of basically 4 months. Okay? So think about if you were or are in a relationship with someone, how was it after you had known them for 4 months? Like, was it to this crazy level? Had you already broken up once and gotten back together? That's the thing that drives me crazy about this series in particular, is that, like, all of this stuff, all of the problems that they have and the fights that they have, they seem so trivial because they haven't known each other for that long. So you're kind of like, just break up. Like, who cares? So Hardin, for the first time, tells her that he loves her, and she says, I love you too. And he says this really weird line, which is, let me read. Don't say too. It sounds like you're agreeing with me. They go to a Christmas party at Hardin's dad's house, and come to find out, Hardin's dad and Landon's mom, who we saw get married in the last movie, are played by completely different actors in this movie, so that's great. Hardin's dad is now British, I believe. We find out that Hardin is planning to move back to England after he graduates. At this point, we're guessing that he's a senior, but that's never made 100% clear to us until the next movie. So he and his dad start arguing. Honestly, I don't really know about what. And there's a really weird scene where, because there's all of these guests in their huge house, so he and his dad start arguing, and they're like, his dad says, why don't we step into another room or have this conversation in private? So they go into another room, but then literally, like, everyone else at the party just stands in the doorway and stares at them while they're fighting. So what was the point of that? Hardin, I think he ends up punching his dad and then storms off, and like he always does. That seems healthy. So at this point, Tessa's pretty upset about Hardin because he won't talk to her about what's going on. She confides in Trevor, aka Dylan Sprouse. And then there's a scene where Hardin makes up with his dad, and he's holding a flip phone while he's doing it. He's talking to him on the phone, and he literally is talking to him with a flip phone. Every other scene and every other character in this movie has a smartphone, including Hardin in every other scene. So I truly, like, did the prop people just lose, like, the random Android phone that they use for that day of filming? I have no idea. So then Christian Vance, who is the boss at Vance Publishing, offers Tessa a job in Seattle at their new office and agrees to pay the rest of her tuition for college. And she's worked there maybe 2 weeks as an intern, and she's 18. So then Tessa and Hardin are at a New Year's Eve party at that frat house, and there's a scene where he finds this random girl named Jamie and asks to talk to her upstairs, and we don't know what they talk about. They go off camera for it. This same group of people with like Molly and Steph and Zed and all of them, they're playing Truth or Dare with Tessa and Hardin, which it's like, don't you guys know that this isn't really a great game for you to play? And there's a really awful scene where Tessa asks Molly truth or dare, and Molly says truth, and Tessa says, is it true that you're a whore? The slut shaming? Like, really? They end up literally fighting, like Molly and Tessa, like rolling around on the ground fighting. Then Tessa and Hardin go upstairs and have SEGGS. Okay. He sees messages on her phone from Trevor saying that he's excited that she got this job offer in Seattle and he's moving to Seattle too. Up until this point, Tessa has not told Hardin about this job offer. So then Hardin just gets really pissed, and then Tessa gets pissed at him for being pissed at her. And then there's a really weird scene where she thinks that Hardin and this girl, Jamie, have done something together, like while at this party or whatever. And then she just goes up and randomly kisses this guy on the mouth, like right in front of Hardin, and it's just this super like chaotic scene where you're literally like, what is going on? Like, are we supposed to be like invested in the outcome of this fight? Because it's the dumbest thing that I've ever seen. I don't know. Then they're not together, I guess. She's driving and she has her phone on the passenger seat and he's texting her or calling her. For some reason, she has to unbuckle her seatbelt to get her phone, which is just sitting on her passenger seat. And of course, while she's doing this, she gets in a crash. And there's this scene. There's this scene where Hardin's like driving by and sees it, and yeah, so Tessa's at the hospital and Hardin's trying to call her to see if she's okay. And then Trevor picks up. For some reason, Trevor has been told about Tessa's accident and is at the hospital with her. They've been co-workers for like 2 weeks. I really don't know. And Trevor tells Hardin that Tessa would be better off without him, which is 110% true. And so then Hardin's all, mad and hangs up. Tessa's fine. She's getting wheeled out of the hospital by Trevor. And Trevor says that Vance's company policy will let them put all of her hospital bills and whatever fees she has to pay for the car accident. Vance will pay for all of it, according to company policy. So Hardin breaks up with Tessa because he's believing what Trevor said, that she would be better off without him. And he doesn't talk to her for 9 days, which in this series truly feels like years. So she's at this party that's like a going away party, I guess, for her boss, Christian Vance, because they're about to move to open this new office in Seattle. And Trevor confesses to her that he answered her phone when Hardin called and said that Hardin should break up with her. He confesses to that, he apologizes to her, and then he blames it on her, basically saying like he can't help himself the way that he acts around her. So then all of a sudden Hardin shows up at this party and basically they forgive each other, or they get back together without like any conversation at all. And as they're walking out, this man who looks like he's maybe housing insecure kind of bumps into them, and Hardin gets ready to like, I don't know, throw hands, and she's like, "Dad?" And that's the end of the movie. So in my opinion, what makes these movies so bad is a couple things. I think first and foremost, the plot and just the writing itself is lazy, and it's an old trope that this movie doesn't bring any new life to. I think it's a story that we've seen before, and I think I can't tell if it's trying to fall into the category of so bad it's good. I would put movies like John Tucker Must Die or Miss Congeniality 2 into the category of so bad it's good. They're the type of movies that that like this isn't gonna be put up for any Oscars, or that it's not a great piece of cinematic work, but it's fun to watch, okay? These movies are not fun to watch. They're not fun. They make me mad because of the inconsistencies in them, like the huge one of moving from Atlanta to Washington, like completely moving the setting of the movies. Okay, I literally felt like I was being gaslit by the producers of this movie. And certain character inconsistencies, like Noah getting really mad at her for drinking and going to a party, and then a few scenes later they're seen at a party and drinking together. The way that this movie basically glorifies abusive relationships. I mean, Hardin is not nice, and he's incredibly difficult to be around, not just for Tessa, but for basically like every character in this movie. He's very rude and cruel and possessive of her, and he uses physical violence to solve his problems or to display how he's feeling. She's seen as just being, I don't know, okay with that, or liking that, or basically thinking like, oh, I know he's damaged, but I can fix him type thing. So it's not good. It's really not good. I think the other thing that makes these movies really hard to watch is the acting. Hardin's acting especially is not good. He is supposed to be like this brooding, like mysterious bad boy type, but it just comes across as whiny. He comes across to me as a child who has temper tantrums that he can't control. And to me, that's neither endearing nor romantic. Definitely not sexy. As far as Tessa, she's a little bit better than him, but again, I don't know. Overall, her character is not dynamic, and I'm never surprised by the things that she does. I feel like this movie tries to make it so that the stakes for them or for their relationship are so high, but they're really not. Like, if they're together or if they break up, who cares? I don't think that this movie is effective in any of the ways that it tries to be, and honestly, I don't even know what it was trying to be completely honest with you. At least 50 Shades had like some steamy scenes that I was like, okay, I get like why people are watching it if just for this. But these SEGGS scenes are like 30 seconds and they're very PG-13. Because I think these movies are rated PG-13. So it's like not even worth watching for that. I did watch After We Fell, which is the third movie in this series. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I found out at the end of After We Fell that there's actually a fourth movie. Cue the tears. I guess they were filmed in tandem, the third and the fourth, and the fourth one is coming out in September of this year. So I will probably be watching that and doing a video on that whenever that does come out. But I wanted to save After We Fell for a separate video because as bad as these two were, After We Fell was worse, okay? Its score on Rotten Tomatoes, I'm not kidding, is 0%. So I just felt like it needed its own video. So I hope you enjoyed this video of me talking about these absolutely outrageous films. Like I said, don't waste your time and watch these. They're not worth it. They're not entertaining. They're not fun. They're not a guilty pleasure. They're hard to watch. Like, they really are. If you like videos like this and you'd like to see me make more stuff like this, please consider subscribing. I love talking about, films and shows and pop culture and all of that stuff. I really love these deep dives into movies too. If you liked this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you liked what you saw and you'd like to see more content like this. And I will see you very soon for my video on After We Fell. Bye.